Welcome to the Landscaping Growth Script, the authority on building your landscaping business with better leads, higher value clients, and a year-round sales pipeline. Here's your host, landscape industry marketing expert, Katy Doss.
Welcome back to the Landscaping Growth Script, where we help landscaping business owners attract better clients and build predictable year-round growth. I'm your host, Katy Doss of Script Marketing, and every week we unpack the ideas, strategies, and stories behind exceptional landscaping businesses. And today's episode is kind of a short one, but I would argue that it may be one of the most practical things we cover this year. We are talking about your email list. Not marketing in some broad theoretical sense. Your actual email list, the one that is sitting in your CRM or your email platform right now, may be untouched, mostly unsegmented, and maybe underused. And here's why I want to spend time on this today, even though this may not sound like the most exciting episode ever. Think about everywhere else your business shows up online. Google, Instagram, reviews. Every single one of those, somebody else controls who's not you. Google decides how you rank. Instagram decides how many of your followers actually see a post. The review platforms decide how your listing looks, that kind of thing. You are playing by rules that you didn't write, and those rules can change. But your email list doesn't work that way. When somebody gives you their email address, that is direct access. Nobody's algorithm sits between you and that inbox. You decide when that person hears from you and what they hear, which means it's one of the only pieces of your entire marketing strategy or infrastructure that you actually own. And most landscaping companies think of it kind of like an afterthought. It's a place to a spring promotion. It's a place to put a discount code before your calendar fills up, that kind of thing. So today, we are going to walk through how to get the most out of your email list. We're going to cover what it actually means to own this piece of your marketing, how to segment that list so that it's not just noise that's going out to these people, how to grow it intentionally instead of by accident, and how to track who's actually paying attention and what to do with that information once you have it. So let's get into it. We're going to start by talking about what it actually means to own that email list. And this is one of those marketing things that gets skipped over a lot. When I say you don't own your Google ranking or your Instagram following, here's what I mean by that. Someone else decides whether your message reaches the person you're trying to reach. So there's like a gatekeeper in between you. Google can and does change its algorithm all the time. And this has a direct impact on your business. A lot of the times it's a negative impact. Instagram can decide if only a fraction of the people who follow you see any given post. It is not up to you. Now, of course, you can do things to make your post more palatable for your followers, but ultimately, it's up to Instagram. Review platforms can change how your listing displays, all of that. None of this is in your hands. And to be clear, I'm not telling you to abandon the marketing that you're doing on any of these channels. Google rankings, social media, reviews, paid ads, they all work. And they all need to be part of your marketing strategy. But your email list is different. When somebody opts in to your email system, you decide when they should hear from you. Nobody else's algorithm stands in the way. And that's what ownership really means here. It's direct access on your terms that nobody can throttle or bury or take away. And here's why that matters. Most landscaping companies have never made this distinction. They're pouring all their energy into channels that they don't control, and the one channel that's actually theirs sits untouched. So if you are sitting there nodding your head thinking, yep, I am guilty of this, and you're treating your email list like it's kind of a leftover instead of an asset, this episode is for you. All right, so number 2. Let's talk about how to segment your email list so that you're not just sending vague messages out to everybody. Most of the value in your email list is in the segmentation. So a lot of you probably have an email list, and it's just a list of email addresses, right? That is not as much of an asset. That can be noise. One generic blast that goes out to a list of people who don't have a lot in common with each other is not a huge asset for your business. The segmented part of that list is where this becomes really, really valuable. So at the highest level of segmentation, you want to have a few broad groups in your email list. So active maintenance clients, active or past design build clients, people who got a proposal and then went quiet, people who've shown a little bit of interest but haven't quite gotten there yet. Those are kind of the high level groups. So every month you may send out kind of a generic newsletter, and that's fine. That goes to all those lists. It's got general update, it's something more high level, seasonal tips, that kind of thing. That is more about engagement. But outside of that newsletter, email marketing works best when it is truly tailored to who's receiving it. An active maintenance client doesn't need a proposal follow-up. Someone who's ghosted after a quote 18 months ago doesn't need the same message as your best client. They need something that's going to reopen the conversation. And if you are a design build company, I would push you to segment your list even further. Segment past design build client by what they actually had done in their outdoor space. Someone who maybe just put in a pool has a natural next project sitting right in front of them for a couple years down the road. Maybe they're going to put in an outdoor kitchen so that they can actually entertain around it, that kind of thing. Someone who had you put in a big play area for their kids, well, those kids are going to outgrow that at some point. So that's a great audience a few years later for a message about elevating that space to something they can enjoy with teenagers or with their friends. The same logic applies to hardscape clients, outdoor kitchen clients, anyone who's done lighting. Each of those groups has a natural next project, and they're far more likely to say yes to a recommendation that builds on something they've already done. So my point is, the more you segment your list by type of client and what they had done, maybe even age. Maybe if you do a project for somebody who's kind of middle age, down the road, they may want to update that landscape to more of an age in place situation. So you want to make sure that you have multiple lists, and they may be small, and that's fine. But you want to have multiple lists with things that people have in common as it relates to your business so that your message can be tailored specifically to them. This is a lot of what we talked about in our episode about your ideal client profiles. Knowing who is actually on your list, what they care about, is what turns that database into something you can actually market to. The more specific your segments, the more relevant every email feels, and relevance is what gets them open. So let's talk about growing this list on purpose and not by accident. Most companies, landscaping or not, struggle with how to grow an email list. Most of you aren't intentionally building your email list, and a lot of times it's because you don't know how. That list grows passively. Whoever happens to end up in the CRM from an invoice or whatever happens upon it. And that's kind of how this works for a lot of people. So there are two things that I want you to fix here to grow this list more intentionally, and neither one of these is complicated. First, you're probably getting email addresses early in your communication when you get to that consultation stage. The problem is not you're not getting the email address, it's that you're not putting them in your email system. They're sitting in a notebook until you put them in your email to send things out. You're putting them in a proposal. And if your proposal system doesn't talk to your email marketing system, those people are not getting your emails. So get into the habit and make it a required step in your process. Every consultation, every proposal, every quote, that contact gets added to your actual email system, not just your CRM's internal database. And go ahead and put them in whatever list or lists make the most sense. And that's not even a growth strategy. That's kind of fixing a leak in your marketing system. So the second thing that I want you to do, once that's solid, let's grow the list on purpose. One of the easiest ways to grow your list is running a meta ad, so a Facebook and Instagram ad specifically designed to get somebody to sign up for your email list. Maybe it's tied to something useful, like a seasonal guide or a planning checklist or something to get project inspiration. You can do that through a meta ad. You can also do that on your website as just a lead magnet, but offer something in return for that email address. It's called an email paywall, and you've seen them where you can't get something unless you put your email address in. Well, if it's something valuable, people will exchange their email address for that. This is obviously a much lower commitment for that person than asking them to book a consultation or all that kind of thing. And that means people who are not ready to hire you, people who are just in that planning phase, but maybe thinking about a project, they're going to take you up on that offer to trade their email address for something valuable. And now that they're on your list and you know what they've downloaded, so you know what they're interested in, you can start reaching out to them proactively on that list with things that are going to matter to them. So between fixing that leak where email addresses are coming into your business but not going into your system, and putting up some lead magnets, whether they're on Meta as ads or just on your website, you're posting about them, whatever you're going to do, your list will start to build. So make sure that this content that you're putting out as a lead magnet is something that is genuinely useful. This is not just a simple little one and done blog post. This is a guide. So think about the kinds of things that your clients ask you. You want to put together this lead magnet that's genuinely useful. People will trade their email addresses for that. Now, number 4, let's track who's actually paying attention to your emails. Once your list is segmented and growing and you are figuring out, okay, what kind of message do my pool clients want to see? What kind of message do my maintenance clients want to see? All that kind of stuff. The next step is paying attention to what's actually happening when you send a message. And all of you know to look at open rates and click rates, right? Those are not vanity numbers. That's a signal. Someone who opens every single email that you send is telling you something. That's a warm lead. They are engaged. They're a great candidate for a personal email just from you, not just the next automated newsletter. Someone who is clicking specific links in your newsletter and in specific emails. So maybe they're clicking everything you send out that talks about an outdoor kitchen. That's telling you even more information. That's not just engagement. That is active interest in a particular service. So that is a lead disguised as a click. And someone who hasn't opened anything in 6 months or more, they're telling you something too. Now, sometimes that may be that your subject lines aren't landing, and that's a topic for another day. But this is also where your list hygiene matters, and it's something that most owners never think about. Old, dead email addresses, people who are not an ideal client for you anymore, people who don't engage for whatever reason, those people don't just sit there harmlessly. Most people think, well, why would I remove anybody from my email list? It's not going to hurt anything to send them. It actually can hurt your deliverability of your emails, meaning fewer of your emails land in inboxes for everybody else on the list. These email systems look at your open rates and your click rates, your bounce rates, your unsubscribes. So get in the habit of removing people from your list who have not engaged in a long time. Now, it may be that you want to give them a little bit longer than if you're selling shirts on an e-commerce website, because it is a long sales cycle. But somebody who's never engaging, usually it's better to take them off that list, put them in a list of people who are not engaged right now. Don't delete them out of your system, but put them in a list of people who are not engaged, and you can do a re-engagement campaign down the road. And again, none of this requires complicated software or anything. All of the email platforms, whether you're using MailChimp or Constant Contact or whatever it is, let you see opens and clicks and sort lists and all that stuff. The hard part is getting in the habit of doing it, right? So once you have this data, once you know who's opening, who's clicking, all that stuff, what do you do with it? So this is where actually tracking that can turn into real revenue. If somebody's clicking on a specific service multiple times, that's your cue to move them into a more tailored segment of that email. You're not going to email them individually and reference all their clicks and say, oh, I know you've been clicking. That's creepy. But what you're going to do, let's say it's a past client who put in a pool. Maybe at that point they didn't put in an outdoor kitchen, but now they're clicking on the outdoor kitchen features. You need to move them into that segment. And you may want to send an email to a much smaller segment that's just got a portfolio of nothing but outdoor kitchens. You're letting their interest guide what they hear from you next without making it feel like you're watching over their shoulder, right? If somebody is consistently opening everything you send, feed that information to your sales team or your account managers. That's a warm contact, and it may be worth a check-in depending on what list they're in. If they're a maintenance client, it may be worth reaching out to them about some enhancements, that kind of thing. And of course, if somebody's gone cold and you've given them some time, you've taken them off your active list, once some time has passed, doing a short re-engagement sequence can make a lot of sense. So you can send an email to this list maybe once a year. Hey, still want to hear from us? And see if they open that after you've had some time without sending them any emails. That's a good way to see if they're possibly still interested before you just let them go. And of course, all of this ties back to consistency, which, I talk about on almost every episode of this podcast. A newsletter that goes out reliably every month builds trust. One you send whenever you happen to think about it doesn't. Your list will start to expect to hear from you on a predictable rhythm, the same way a good client expects a check-in from your crew. So when you combine strong segmentation, intentional growth, and actually acting on who's engaged with those emails versus who's gone cold, your list stops being kind of a marketing afterthought where you just maybe dump a seasonal promo or two. It becomes one of the most efficient, highest return channels in your entire marketing strategy. And to make this even easier to implement, we've put together a free email list growth and segmentation toolkit. It walks you through how to segment your entire list, a simple plan for growing it intentionally, and what to actually do with your open and click data once you have it. Grab that at scriptmarketingco.com/resources. All right, let's bring this all together. Your email list is one of the only pieces of marketing that you actually own. Nobody else's algorithm decides whether your message gets through. But owning it only matters if you treat it like an asset. That means segmenting it. So past pool clients and maintenance clients aren't getting the same generic email. It means growing that list on purpose and intentionally by making sure every time you get an email for whatever purpose, it's going into that system and you're segmenting them. And it means creating content that is actually valuable that people will trade their email address for. It means paying attention to who's opening those emails, who's clicking those emails, and what they're clicking. And it means acting on it. Following up with people based on their interest is a phenomenal way to grow your business. So if you haven't looked at your list in a while, go in there and take a look. Start segmenting your list. Start saying, oh, there's Miss Smith. We just did a small project for her a few years ago. Let's put her on the list for full outdoor space potential work, that kind of thing. Most of your competitors are still treating their email list like a leftover. The ones who stop doing that are going to have a quiet, meaningful edge. And don't forget, grab that free email list growth and segmentation toolkit at scriptmarketingco.com/resources to put everything we've covered today into practice. That's a wrap for today. I'm your host, Katy Doss of Script Marketing, where we help landscaping businesses attract better clients and build predictable year-round growth. If you've got questions or ideas for a future episode, we always want to hear those. Email us at info@scriptmarketingco.com. We'll see you next week for more strategies from the Landscaping Growth Script.
You've been listening to the Landscaping Growth Script with Katy Doss. To learn more about building predictable, year-round growth for your landscaping business, visit scriptmarketingco.com.